They said I didn't belong. My mother looked me in the eye and said I wasn't even family. Years of being ignored, humiliated, and overlooked came down to one night. One party, one sentence. And what happened next changed everything: my name, my life, my family's legacy. If you want to hear how I took back everything they tried to steal from me, subscribe to Revengetancredi now and watch the full story unfold. My name is Aurelia Kine, and for most of my life I was treated like a guest in my own family. Not the kind of guest you invite with warmth, but the kind that shows up out of obligation, someone everyone wishes would just quietly disappear after dessert. You know those family portraits where everyone smiles like they mean it? Yeah, in mine, if you look close enough, you can see the truth in my mother's eyes, that tiny deliberate gap between her shoulder and mine. It was small enough for the camera to miss, but big enough for me to feel. Growing up, I didn't know why she hated me. I thought I was the problem. Maybe I didn't smile enough, didn't talk enough, or maybe I reminded her of something she didn't want to remember. Dad was my only safe place, the kind of man who would pick me up from school when Mom forgot, who remembered my art shows, who told me, Aurelia, people who underestimate you are giving you power. Don't waste it proving them wrong, just live big enough that they see it themselves. I held on to that. I had to, because Mom Dilara Kine was a storm that never ended. She wasn't cruel in the obvious way. She was the kind of cruel that smiled while twisting the knife. Every time Dad left on business trips, she'd fill the house with her little games. I'm hosting a brunch for the real family, she'd say with that perfect smirk, so you might want to stay out of sight. You tend to make people uncomfortable. By real family, she meant my half-siblings Aidan and Calla, her golden children from her first marriage. They got everything, her pride, her attention, her love. I got polite indifference, and the reminder that I was the daughter of the other woman. That was her favorite phrase when she was angry, the other woman. Even though Dad and Mom had been married for 21 years, even though I was born after their marriage, not before. Still, she'd find ways to make me feel like a mistake that somehow kept living. When I was 17, I stopped trying to earn her approval. By 20, I stopped speaking to her unless necessary. And by 23, I moved to a city 3 hours away and told myself I'd never go back. But life loves irony. Because 3 years later, I went back, and that one visit turned into the moment my mother's perfect little world cracked open. It started with an invitation, a gold-trimmed, embossed envelope that came through my mail slot on a windy Friday morning. The kind of envelope that screamed wealth and ego before you even opened it. You are cordially invited to the 60th birthday celebration of Dr. Nolan Kine. My father. The address was the same mansion I'd run from. The RSVP line at the bottom had been filled out already, in my mother's handwriting. Heavy check mark attending. I almost laughed. She RSVP'd for me, to a party I had no intention of attending. But then I saw the fine print. Formal introductions of the Kine family legacy to esteemed business partners and media representatives. And something clicked. I knew what that meant. Dilara Kine was planning to publicly present her 2 perfect children as the heirs of my father's real estate firm, the firm he built from the ground up. The same one I helped him manage from behind the scenes while finishing my MBA. He trusted me with numbers, strategies, and negotiation plans, not them. If she was going to erase me from my father's legacy, she wasn't going to do it quietly. She'd do it with champagne glasses, photographers, and applause. That's when I made my decision. I was going. Not for the party. For the truth. When I arrived that night, everything looked the same: the marble staircase, the glittering chandelier, the same scent of Dilara's favorite rose oil that used to make me nauseous. Only this time, I didn't walk in as the quiet girl who hid behind walls. I walked in wearing a dark emerald gown, Dad's favorite color, with confidence that made people turn their heads. Aidan and Calla were near the bar, laughing, showing off their designer watches. Mom was in her element, floating through the crowd, dripping in silver jewelry, smiling like she'd invented charm itself. And my dad, was seated near the stage, looking tired. The kind of tired you only see in people who have spent decades loving those who secretly drain them. When he saw me, his eyes lit up. "Leah," he said softly, the nickname only he used. "You came." "I wouldn't miss it for the world," I said. He smiled, and for a moment it felt like home. But that warmth didn't last. Not with Dilara around. She spotted me from across the room and froze mid-laugh. Then slowly she turned to the people beside her and said something that made them all look my way and laugh. She approached me with that fake sweetness that always came before the venom. "Well," she said, voice dripping with poison and perfume, "look who decided to join the family this time." "I was invited," I replied calmly. "Of course, dear, I just assumed you'd be too busy with whatever it is you do now." "Working," I said flatly. "Oh, working, yes, I suppose someone has to." The people nearby chuckled politely. Then she leaned closer and whispered, "Try not to embarrass yourself tonight. This is a family event." I didn't answer, not yet. Because Dad stood to speak and the room went quiet. He thanked everyone for coming, told a few warm stories about his early career, and then gestured toward the table where Aiden and Calla sat. "And of course," he said, "none of this means anything without my family." The crowd clapped. Dilara smiled wide, too wide. But before Dad could continue, she took the microphone from his hand with a gentle laugh. "Oh, Nolan," she said, "you're too modest." Then, turning to the crowd, "Everyone, tonight isn't just about celebrating my husband's success, it's about honoring the next generation of kinds." A spotlight turned toward Aiden and Calla. Applause filled the room, cameras flashed. "And as Nolan's true legacy," Dilara continued, "I'm proud to present." That's when I stood up. I don't remember planning it. I just remember something inside me breaking, the soundless kind of break that turns pain into resolve. "Excuse me," I said, stepping toward the stage. Dilara's smile faltered. "Oh, Aurelia," she said through clenched teeth, "please don't make a scene." But it was too late. Everyone was watching. I took the microphone from her hand gently, looked at my father and said, "Dad, may I?" He nodded slowly. And then I said the one sentence that changed everything. When I took the microphone, every sound in that hall seemed to fade, the clinking of glasses, the quiet laughter, even the soft jazz that had been floating through the air. For the first time in years, my mother didn't have a word ready. Her smile froze halfway, brittle as glass. I turned toward my father first. His eyes were worried but soft. The way they always were when he wanted me to know. He trusted me, even when he didn't understand what I was doing. "Dad," I began, my voice steady though my hands trembled, "before we talk about the next generation of kinds, there's something we need to clear up, something about who the family really is." A ripple of unease swept through the crowd. I could feel eyes darting between me and my mother like people watching a match about to strike. Dilara laughed lightly, trying to smooth the tension. "Oh, Aurelia, darling, we don't need." But I raised a hand and she stopped. The crowd hushed again. "You've all heard wonderful things tonight," I continued. "About legacy, about loyalty, about building something worth passing on. But legacies aren't built only from money or marble, they're built from truth." A few guests nodded, probably thinking this was some heartfelt toast. They had no idea what was coming. "Some of you might not know," I said, "that the Kind family business, the empire you're all celebrating, wasn't founded by one person alone. It started from a partnership. My father and I have been working together for years behind the scenes. The expansion into coastal real estate, that was my proposal. The merger that doubled revenue last quarter, my signature is on those contracts." Gasps, murmurs, someone whispered, "She's involved." I could see Dad's face, surprised, yes, but proud. He knew what I was saying was true, though he'd never expected me to reveal it like this. Dilara's painted smile slipped a little further. "Sweetheart, you helped, but—" "Helped," I cut in gently. "Dad and I co-signed the last 3 property acquisitions. I have equal shares in Kind Holdings, registered and notarized last year, yet somehow I wasn't invited to the announcement of our family legacy. Why is that?" Now all attention was on her. Cameras were still rolling, capturing every flicker of her expression. Dilara straightened her shoulders, clinging to composure. "This isn't the place." "Oh, I think it's exactly the place," I said. "Because for years this family has been defined by whispers, who belongs, who doesn't, who's worthy of carrying the kind name. And tonight you looked right at me, Mom, and told your guests this was a family event. So let's be clear for once. Am I your family or not?" A deadly silence. Someone coughed near the bar. She stared at me, her jaw tight. "You always wanted attention, Aurelia. You never learned when to stay quiet." I smiled, calm but sharp. "You taught me that silence keeps liars comfortable." The guests murmured again, uneasy, unsure whether to stay or flee. Dad finally stood beside me. "That's enough," he said to her, voice low but firm. "You've spent years dividing this family, not tonight." Her eyes widened, realizing the tide was turning. "Nolan, don't you dare embarrass me." "Embarrass you?" he said. "Aurelia worked for this company more than anyone. You told everyone she was busy with trivial things while she was running half our negotiations. You erased her from my life and I let you, thinking it would keep peace, but peace built on lies always collapses." The crowd had gone completely silent now. Even Aiden and Calla had stopped pretending to laugh. They were pale, fidgeting, unsure which parent to stand by. I looked at them and softened my tone. "This isn't about punishing anyone. It's about ending the part of our story that's been written in shadows." Then I turned to my father again. "Dad, I'm grateful for everything you taught me. I love you. But if the only way for me to belong here is to keep pretending I don't exist, then I'd rather build my own name." He blinked, hurt, proud, torn. "Aurelia." I handed him the microphone back and whispered, "You'll understand soon." Then I faced the guests, smiled politely and walked off stage. Outside, the night air was cold and sharp. I stepped into the garden, where the hum of music was muffled by glass doors. For the first time in years, I felt something close to relief. I'd spent my whole life letting Dilara control the narrative. Tonight, I'd stolen it back. But I wasn't finished. When the first text came through, my lawyer confirming that the press release had gone live, I allowed myself a single deep breath. The release contained everything: proof of my ownership stake, signed copies of business documents, and a press statement naming me as co-founder of Kine Holdings' newest division. By morning, the world would know the truth. Inside the mansion, chaos brewed. Through the windows, I could see Dilara speaking furiously into her phone, Dad trying to calm guests, Aiden pouring himself another drink. It wasn't revenge yet, it was just the spark. Revenge would come later, when the woman who said I wasn't family realized she'd just lost the empire she tried to steal. The night air bit at my skin as I stepped into the cold garden. From the terrace, I could still hear the muffled chaos spilling out from the ballroom, raised voices, broken laughter, the metallic ring of dropped glasses. I had done it. After years of letting my mother decide what I was worth, I'd finally taken back control. And yet, standing there among the trimmed hedges and white roses, I didn't feel triumphant. Not yet. The kind of revenge I wanted wasn't about yelling louder. It was about silence, letting the truth do what rage never could. My phone buzzed again. "Lucas, it's out. Every outlet has it. You're officially trending, Aurelia." I smiled faintly. Lucas Varin had been my closest friend since business school, a lawyer with a brain sharp enough to cut through corporate armor. He'd helped me prepare the documents that proved my ownership stake, patiently, secretly, and with the kind of loyalty that made me believe not everyone turned away when things got hard. A second message followed. "Lucas, they're scrambling. Dilara's PR team already issued a statement calling it a misunderstanding. It's unraveling fast." I glanced back toward the glowing windows. Inside, my mother's world was folding in on itself. For years, she had built an image so polished it could blind anyone who looked too long: perfect wife, devoted mother, graceful hostess. And in one night, all of it had started to burn. I should have felt satisfaction, but all I felt was quiet. Because deep down, I knew this wasn't just about one evening or one public humiliation. This was about everything she'd done before, the birthdays she skipped, the years she convinced Dad I didn't care about the family business, the way she'd looked at me every time like I was someone else's child. And maybe I was in her heart. But tonight that didn't matter. Tonight I was the one rewriting the story. By the next morning, the headlines had spread like wildfire. KAINE Holdings scandal, secret co-owner revealed. Business prodigy AUILIA KAINE takes control of firm's coastal branch. Wife of Dr. NOLANKAINE under fire for deceptive legacy announcement. The public loved it, betrayal, wealth, family tension. It was reality TV written in ink. I sat in my small apartment downtown, sipping black coffee as my phone buzzed with calls from journalists, investors and strangers who suddenly wanted to know everything about the woman behind the scandal. My inbox overflowed with congratulations, partnership offers and speaking invitations. But none of them mattered as much as the single voicemail I got from my father that afternoon. Leah, I didn't know she'd go that far. You were right to speak up, I'm proud of you, always have been. But please don't let this tear everything apart. Let's talk soon, I love you. I played it twice, then a third time. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was something close to peace. Dilara, on the other hand, was imploding. Within 2 days, social media had turned on her. Every lifestyle blog that once praised her elegant philanthropy now dissected her hypocrisy. Investors started pulling out of her charity projects. And then the first real hit came. Lucas called me just after sunset. She's liquidating shares, he said, trying to reassert control, but we've got leverage, the board's calling an emergency meeting tomorrow. They want you there. Me? You're co-owner now, they can't make a decision without you. For a moment I didn't answer. This was everything I'd wanted, proof that she couldn't erase me anymore. But another part of me hesitated. Lucas, if I show up this becomes war. It already is, he said, you just didn't start it. The next morning I walked into KAINE Holdings, glass headquarters for the first time in years. Every step echoed, employees whispered. I could feel eyes on me, some curious, some awed, some fearful. To them I was either the savior or the spark that set everything on fire. In the boardroom, Dilara was already seated at the far end of the long table, wearing her favorite pearl grey suit and the expression of someone who refused to accept defeat. Aurelia, she said coolly as I entered, I see you've been busy. Just cleaning up some confusion, I replied. Confusion, she let out a brittle laugh. You've turned this family into gossip, you've humiliated your father. I told the truth, I said. If that's humiliation, maybe you should ask yourself why. The room was full now, directors, legal advisors, shareholders. My father sat near the middle, looking exhausted but attentive. The chairman cleared his throat. Dr. KAINE, Mrs. KAINE, Ms. KAINE, this meeting is to determine control distribution following recent revelations. Our concern is the firm's stability. Dilara straightened. Stability is exactly why Aurelia needs to step back. She's emotional, inexperienced. Half this company's growth came from my projections, I cut in. You can call that emotional if you want, but numbers don't cry, do they? A few of the directors smirked, quickly hiding it behind coughs. My mother's gaze could have cut glass. I've built this family's reputation, she said. You don't destroy that overnight because you're craving attention. I don't need attention, I said quietly. I need fairness, and right now my name is on every major deal we've made in the last 2 years, so either we fix this together or we let the board vote. The silence that followed was surgical. The chairman nodded slowly. We'll vote. When the results came in, 8 in favor of restructuring. 3 opposed. Dilara's face drained of color. Restructuring meant her influence would be suspended pending a full audit. My father retained his chairmanship. I was officially named co-executive director. It was the polite version of Excel. She didn't look at me as the meeting ended, just gathered her purse and walked out, heels clicking like gunfire against the tile. That should have been the end of it. But revenge isn't just about winning, it's about deciding when the story stops. And I wasn't done. Because even stripped of her titles, Dilara was still dangerous. She knew how to manipulate, how to twist sympathy. And sure enough, within a week, she'd found her stage again, television interviews, newspaper columns, public tears. She's my daughter, she said to one host, her voice trembling just enough. I only wanted to protect her from the pressures of this business. She misunderstood me. I watched the clip from my office, my jaw tightening. She was rewriting the story again, turning herself into the victim. Lucas leaned against the desk, arms crossed. You knew she'd try this. I did, I said. That's why we'll use her own game. I turned the monitor toward him, showing a draft of something I'd been working on, the Aurelia Initiative. A new branch of Kind Holdings focused on affordable housing and women-led startups. Clean, transparent, real. She used philanthropy as a mask, I said. I'll use it as proof. Lucas smiled faintly. You're turning her old spotlight into your weapon. Exactly. Over the next 3 months, the Aurelia Initiative exploded in the media. I gave interviews, not about scandal but about rebuilding trust, about what it meant to create opportunity from betrayal. Every headline that once belonged to my mother's drama now had my name instead. Investors who had backed away returned, former partners reached out. And slowly the narrative shifted. I didn't have to destroy her, I just had to become everything she pretended to be. But the universe, it seems, enjoys poetic symmetry. Because one evening as I left the office late, I saw her waiting by my car. Dolores. No cameras, no entourage, just her. Her once perfect hair was unstyled, her eyes tired, but the arrogance, that sharp edge, was still there. You've made your point, she said coldly. Enjoy your spotlight, but remember, families always circle back. I looked at her for a long moment before answering. No, Mom, I said softly. They only circle back when there's love to return to. She flinched just slightly. Then I opened my car door, got in and drove away. That night, as the city lights blurred past my windshield, I thought about everything that had happened, every wound, every word, every silence. Some people spend their lives chasing revenge as if it's a destination. But I'd learned something different. Real revenge isn't about making them hurt. It's about making yourself whole. And for the first time in my life, I felt whole. Weeks passed. The world moved on, as it always does, but the tremors of that night at my father's party never really faded. They simply settled into the walls of every room we'd ever shared. Dilara Kine had vanished from public view after that brief, televised attempt to reclaim her image. Rumours spread, some said she'd left the city, others whispered she was planning a comeback, but to me it didn't matter. I had stopped living in the shadow of her choices. For the first time in my life, I was no longer reacting to her story. I was writing mine. Still, silence can be deceptive, and I should have known she wouldn't disappear quietly. It started with a phone call late one Friday. I was reviewing housing project proposals in my office when the intercom buzzed. My assistant's voice came through, hesitant. Ms. Kine, there's someone here to see you. She won't give her name, but she says it's urgent. I didn't have to ask. My chest tightened instantly. Send her in, I said. The door opened and there she was. My mother, dressed not in her polished greys or silk whites, but in a simple black coat. Her hair was darker, shorter. She looked smaller too, like someone who'd been holding her breath for months. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Finally, she stepped forward, her heels echoing faintly. You've been busy, she said. Her tone wasn't mocking this time, just tired. I have, I said. What do you want? She exhaled sharply. I came to end this. I folded my arms. End what? The truth's already out, Mom. This feud, this Cold War. You've won Aurelia, you have everything now, the company, the board's support, your father's sympathy. Congratulations. Her lips curved into a brittle smile. But I can't lose everything. You don't understand what it's like to build a life from nothing, only to have your own child take it apart. Something inside me strung, but I didn't let it show. I didn't take it apart, I said quietly. You built it on lies, it collapsed on its own. Dilara's expression faltered for the first time. She glanced around the office, her gaze landing on a framed photo on my desk, me and my father from my graduation. I gave you everything, she whispered, even when you hated me. No, I said, you gave me expectations, you gave me silence, and when I tried to stand beside you, you pushed me behind you. She looked at me for a long moment, then, to my surprise, she laughed softly. I see it now, she murmured, you really are my daughter. And then, as if the conversation had exhausted her, She turned and walked toward the door. But before she left, she paused. You think this story ends with you triumphant and me broken, but one day, Aurelia, you'll look at someone you love and see me in their reflection, and that's when you'll understand what power costs. Then she was gone. For a week, I couldn't stop thinking about her words. They weren't a threat, they were a prophecy, and I hated that part of me believed it. But life didn't wait. The Aurelia initiative was thriving. Our first coastal project broke ground in the harbour district, the same land my mother once dismissed as unprofitable and unpresentable. The press called it the Phoenix Build, and people started using my name as shorthand for resilience. Still, there was one thing left undone, the legacy papers. Dad had been meaning to update them for months, especially after everything that happened. We delayed it until the dust settled. Now, sitting across from him in his study, I realized how far we'd come. I always thought your mother and I could balance each other out, he said quietly, signing the last page. She had ambition, you have vision, I never expected the two to collide. Maybe they were always going to, I said. He smiled sadly. You remind me of her sometimes, not the way she became but the way she started, sharp, brave, unstoppable. I looked away, I don't want to become her. He reached over, placing a hand on mine. Then don't, write a different ending. But fate has a cruel sense of timing. 2 weeks later, Lucas called me at dawn. Aurelia, he said, his voice tight. There's been a break-in at the harbour site office. Files, servers gone. What? My heart dropped. Who would? I think you know who, he said grimly. Security caught footage, it's her. For a moment I couldn't breathe. Dilareth. After everything, after losing her influence, her seat, her reputation, she had gone for the one thing that still mattered to me, the initiative, my proof that light could exist after her shadow. The next 48 hours were a blur of police reports, insurance statements and crisis control. But through the chaos I realized something strange. None of the stolen files were financial. They were personal. Testimonials, letters, design drafts, things that connected the initiative to me. She hadn't been trying to ruin the project. She'd been trying to erase my name. It was her old instinct, rewriting the story. But this time I was ready. We traced the signal of the copied files to an abandoned warehouse, once part of Kine Holdings' old logistics chain. I went there myself. The night was cold and empty. The building smelled of dust and old metal. Inside I found her, sitting at a table surrounded by open laptops, glowing screens casting harsh light across her face. She didn't look startled when she saw me. If anything, she looked relieved. You shouldn't have come alone, she said softly. I'm not here to fight, I said, just to understand. She sighed. I built a legacy, Aurelia. Every piece of it had my name, my hands, my sacrifices. You think I can watch you replace me so easily? I stepped closer. You built a facade, I'm building something real. This isn't about replacing you, it's about fixing what you broke. Her jaw clenched. And what if I can't let you? For a moment we just stood there, two women, two generations, both carved from the same stone, both trying to shape the world before it shaped us. I'm not your enemy, I said quietly. I never was, but if you keep trying to destroy what's left, then maybe I'll have no choice. Her eyes glistened, and for the first time I saw something human there. Not cruelty, not arrogance, just fear. Then she shut down the laptops one by one and whispered, You win. She handed me a flash drive, the only copy of the files. And for once she didn't try to make it dramatic. She just walked past me, out into the dark without looking back. Months passed. The scandal finally died. Kine Holdings rebranded completely under my direction. Dad retired proud. Lucas and I became partners in business and quietly in life. And Dilara, she disappeared for good this time. Rumors said she moved to the coast, living under another name, quietly investing in local schools and housing programs, the same kind of work she once mocked. Maybe she'd learned something after all. Or maybe, like me, she just needed a way to make peace with her own reflection. The following year, I stood on stage at the opening of the Aurelia Foundation, our biggest project yet. The crowd was massive, cameras flashing, the city skyline glowing behind us. As I began my speech, I spotted one face at the back, older, shadowed, but unmistakably hers. Our eyes met, and for a heartbeat,